Moving on, Sang Lim says, Mr. Whittle, I've been meaning to ask you this plenty of times, but so far it's never been chosen. I hope you get a chance to answer it. Here it is. Sang, what is your opinion on mercenaries and private military contractors? And then it goes on for, like 9 paragraphs of really interesting stuff, which I didn't copy. As I said earlier, saying this is a question I've never, ever, ever considered, and I don't know anything about it, but that will not stop you from giving you my full opinion on it. What I have said repeatedly is it's nice to have a consistent philosophy, because if you have a consistent philosophy, you can always go back to your philosophy. So I'll give you my philosophy on mercenaries and private military contractors. Philosophically, I believe in freedom and people being allowed to do what they want to. That's a job. It's an occupation, and there's demand for it, and there's pay, and it requires a skill set. I don't think there's anything different about being a mercenary or contractor, military contractor, than there's being a plumber. I think it's exactly the same thing, frankly. You have a set of skills that you acquired, and people will pay you for them, and you should have every right to go out there and use those skills. Now, with that said, if your skill set is killing people, then there are limitations on how you're allowed to kill people in this world and not pay a price for it. And most people agree that if you're a nation at war that's declared war with another nation or other group that's declared open war on another, then the killing that occurs in that environment is legal and justified. So from an ethical point of view, I don't have anybody. Military contractors are not in the same group as mercenaries. I mean, military contractor to me is a guy who, if the guy builds a power plant and he does it for a company in, Topeka, Kansas, or he builds a power plant for a company in Baghdad, Iraq, he's just a guy building a power plant. He's just working for a different client. So military contractor is different. I think mercenary is a subset of that that's probably bears a little more explanation or exploration. So look, if your job is to kill people, then the question is, under what conditions are you being hired, and under what conditions are you applying that skill set? There's very limited set of circumstances where mercenaries can function legally and, in my opinion, ethically. But if you've got, look, if John Doistan is at war with John Buckistan, and John Buckistan has $100 million, and they hire 200 former SEALs to help out in their war, then I say to them, rock on. I think the concomitant disadvantage of that is, you may be an American mercenary. You may be a guy who had a severe set of skill sets that you learned in the military, and you may employ those under certain conditions for pay. And I have no problem with any of this, none at all, none. But that doesn't mean that you're operating under the flag of the United States, and therefore you're not owed anything by the flag of the United States. In other words, I think we have an obligation as Americans. If any of our soldiers who are serving in the U.S. Armed Forces get in trouble, I'd send everybody we could after them. I try to rescue them, and I don't care how many people we sent. And on some level, on some philosophical level, I don't want to say I don't care about how many we lose rescue them. I care very much, but I would be willing to do it because I think the most important thing in terms of morale, and certainly in terms of the kind of country I want to live in, is that if one of our people gets in trouble, we will deploy whatever resources we have until we get them out of trouble. And that means everything. That means everything in the box. So if there's, the Benghazi story is perfect. It's a perfect storm of everything I hate about this man, everything I hate about Hillary Clinton. And the fact that they're watching these two guys die on TV, these two former military men who are running to the embassy, or to the consulate, I should say, in Benghazi, running not away from the gunfire, towards the gunfire, and holding off something like 75 to 100 individuals, just the two of them, for 6 hours underneath the eyes of that drone, and waiting for help to come, and help was never on its way. It's not like the help didn't get there in time. The help was never on its way. They just said, no, don't, turn the helicopters off, shut them down, and bring the rescue crews home. It's too risky to go get them. They'll be dead by the time we get there anyway. Well, they said 2-hour flight to get there by helicopters. The guys fought for 6 hours. So they could have gotten them out, but they didn't. And that's what do you say about that? I mean, they were going to defend the embassy. They were hired by Americans to defend the embassy, and I just don't know what to say about that. But if you've got a guy who is a former Green Beret, let's say, and he's fighting in Jobukistan against some guys from, John Doistan, then he doesn't get to call for help from us. He's not working for us. He's working for himself. That's the downside of Mercenaries. One of the things I learned from that great Traveller science fiction game was one of the occupations in that game was mercenary. And I got, from that game, I got the idea of a repatriation bond, where basically a significant sum of money is held in escrow to get you out of there, and that if you got out of there, then that would be paid to the people that got you out of there. It's kind of a insurance policy that they don't just throw you away. So as far as the ethics of it go, it depends on who's fighting who and why. It's not hard to imagine a person who's real good at killing people and does so under the constraints of the United States military going out and getting a job and not being such a nice guy. But that's not America's problem, and that's not a stain on America's honor. He's not in American uniform. He's not one of us. He's an individual citizen who, like any other person, is making decisions, and I certainly don't equate all mercenaries with criminals. I don't think vast majority of them are. But if you become a paid soldier and you go someplace and commit atrocities, then you're a murderer, and you're a murderer. You're an assassin, and that's it. You have to pay the consequences of that. So I don't know if that really helped you. I know you listed a lot of examples saying, but I really do believe in this idea of freedom and choice, and it's an occupation, and it's a skill set, and it's certainly, my understanding is that in the private world you get paid a lot better than you do in the military. But yeah, I don't have any problem with the idea. I don't have any problem with the concept. I think you have to ask yourself on a case-by-case basis, is this person behaving ethically and honorably? And if they're not, then they're criminals. And there you go.